That's a pretty good one. All right, we're gonna start. Hey, this is Joe Kenn for Dynamic Fitness and Strength. Welcome to Dynamic Discussions. On behalf of our owners, Kurt and Tammy, and our producer, James Peters, we appreciate you all taking the time out to be on the show tonight. As usual, James will have this up on YouTube within the next couple of days. He's pretty expedient about that. But tonight, without further ado, we're going to introduce this month's guest, Coach Pete Traynor from Urbandale High School. And I believe Urbandale was ranked by MaxPreps as one of the top high school weight rooms in the country. We were very fortunate that we were a part of that process from Dynamic Fitness and Strength, and we are very happy to have Coach with us tonight. Coach, thank you for taking the time out on a Wednesday night to be with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're fortunate. We were able to, partner with Dynamic pretty early on with, we're going through the whole process, and we had new construction, and it went exactly how we had hoped it to. And yeah, I think the final number was we ended up number 2 on that MaxPreps. So we were close, but we got there.
See, now, if there was recruiting involved, I don't know if it's open enrollment in your area, but that's a big recruiting pitch for some of those kids going into their freshman year.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Coach, you're an Iowa Hawkeye. One of the things when I was doing some of your background, and it looks like your career as a Hawkeye was right at the beginning of the Coach Ferentz tenure. Is that correct?
It is. So my first semester was Coach Fry's last.
Okay.
And so, so I had one semester under Coach Fry, and and it was kind of a crazy transition because there was a couple, it was, if I remember correctly, it's been a few years, right? But if I remember correctly, there was a couple months in between when we knew when Coach Fry, it said, hey, this is going to be it, I'm done, before they officially announced Coach Ferentz. So it was kind of a little bit longer transition than we were hoping there as players, and we were kind of in limbo for a little bit. But yeah, so then second semester coming back, Coach Ferentz. So
as a football coach / strength coach, tell some of our audience, you had Coach Longo then was your first semester as a freshman, and then Coach Doyle came in with Coach Ferentz. Was that a shocking experience back in the early 2000s? You could do a lot of different stuff and get away with a lot of different stuff than you can now.
Right.
And I had actually followed Coach Doyle at Utah. When he left Utah to go to Iowa, I went from Boise to Utah. So I'm familiar with the programming, but how much of I don't want to say shock, but because even in the early 2000s, the year-round strength and conditioning was still kind of in its birthright, right? It still wasn't like it is now. Like they expect you to be there the January after your high school football season, and if you don't leave, if you get redshirted and don't leave college football with a master's degree, you didn't do yourself you did yourself a disservice.
Absolutely, yeah, without question. And there was a pretty big change, between first semester and then second semester. And this is where, this is just me personally, and my story too, before that, I grew up on a small dairy farm in Wisconsin, right? 30 miles south of Madison. I grew up wanting to be a Badger the whole time.
Gotcha.
Right. Well, so I was, as a senior in high school, I'm 6'4", almost 6'5", 230 pounds. I wasn't big enough to be a Badger. Right. So that's how I ended up finding my way to Iowa City. Well, but in high school, like we had no strength conditioning whatsoever. None, and so then we get there. And so for me, it was a huge shock to begin with, because now I get to the first semester in college, and man, yeah, exactly. We're lifting 3 days a week in season, and we have early morning. I'm part of the early morning Friday football club.
Friday freshman.
Yeah, oh yeah, and so then the transition to second semester, and for me, this is what's also kind of helped with my coaching now. is understanding just the amazing coaches that I've had in my career, right? And understanding that, there's more than one way to do strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, Coach Longo was a great coach, but very different philosophies with Doyle. Right. And so, but they got results. And so transitioning to that, and like you said, there was not there. We had a lot of voluntary summer workouts, right? And so now it is. Now it's better for the student athletes, like you said, man. But when those guys roll out of there 4 or 5 years later, man, if they don't take advantage of everything, they're doing it wrong.
For sure. So with that being said, you get exposed to 2 really good strength and conditioning coaches, 2 probably college hall. Well, Coach Fry is, and I'm sure Coach Ferenc is going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame someday. What drew you to coaching, one, and then I know you coach a little bit on the grass and you're also a strength coach and you were at the college level too. Do you like both, or would you prefer if you could just be one or the other?
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked that, honestly, and so for me, well, I'll back up. Part of the reason I got so involved and fell in love with strength and conditioning was, like I said, go back to my high school days, and I show up, and I'm kind of the big fish in a little pond in my small little high school, right? And like I said, we didn't work out, but I was just naturally bigger and stronger and faster than the other guys. Well, then all of a sudden I get there and I'm the little dude on the totem pole, right? And so for me, like that, I had to fast forward. I dove headfirst into, I wanted to become a sponge. Everything that the coaches were going to try and teach me, I wanted to try to soak up, because even with my other, not even talking about the upperclassmen, but even my other freshmen, I was miles behind, right? And so I wanted to try and, hey, why am I doing this? How can I learn to do this better that's going to allow me to grow and exponentially kind of speed up, right, that time that I'm missing from before, so I can try to catch up to, even, like I said, even my own classmates.
Right.
Not alone, right? Not even to mention the upperclassmen. So that was what really kind of dove, I dove head in when it came to the strength conditioning part of stuff. And then having, like you said, just amazing coaches. My position coach ended up being, the second under Coach Ferentz with Joe Philbin. So obviously, he ended up being a head coach of the Dolphins, and he's still in the NFL now. He's with the Cowboys again, and just having some amazing coaches. I was like, man, I could see myself doing that, right? That's what, just the passion that they coached with and led with really kind of it turned me on to that, right? But then, like you said, then getting to the college part and doing that stuff, and for me, it's like, well, there's 2 things. I mean, other than faith and family, right? There's 2 things that I'm passionate about, and it's football and strength and conditioning, right? And so I've had opportunities to kind of go one way or the other over the years. And, when I was at college, coaching college, I was able to do both there. And then even for me now, it's like, what, I'm blessed. I'm able to do the 2 things that I'm truly passionate about, still able to do both now.
Yeah, I knew right away I wanted no part of coaching on the grass. I just I didn't like watching film when I played. I wasn't going to watch it when I coached. And I guess, and again, if it's that passionate, then I think, the next question I was going to talk to you a little bit about, college, different levels of college coaching, and then high school realm, in a situation for yourself where you can tell you are equally passionate about combining both of your loves. It's easier to do that and I don't like to classify lower level college, but it's the Division II and Division III level. You see a lot more of that. And that's why, and some of the best coaching is happening at those levels anyway. And I think that's where, when you're talking to some of these younger coaches and they talk about what they really want to accomplish. And I'm like, look, if you really want to accomplish that, don't just set yourself like you think that's Power 5. I've been to the Power 5. I've been to the NFL. The best coaching being done is in the levels where the athleticism of the athlete isn't as high.
Absolutely.
The best technical lifters I ever coached in the NFL were from Division II and Division III schools because they had to be better. They couldn't rest on their talent to get them through. You know, you got one kid who's got to do a perfect Olympic style clean to clean 300, and then you get the kid from the Power 5 school who can about just pick it up off the ground and reverse curl it, and you say it's all good.
Right.
But you were at Simpson, and then you get the job at Urbandale in 2018. Was that a long-term play or goal, or was it when you're looking at your life and family that the high school model better suited what your goals and aspirations were long-term, or what was something else that came into matter? Because usually, well, this day and age, the high school game has changed dramatically, right? There's a reason why there's a high school association, because high school strength and conditioning is a relevant and an absolute necessary job that we need in our society. And you're seeing more college coaches going to high school rather than the high school coaches coming up. So talk a little bit to our crowd about that decision, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of younger strength coaches who are going to be in that situation sooner than later.
Absolutely. And so for me, I'm just going to be 100% honest and transparent. There wasn't one thing, right? Because, you know, when I was still coaching college, and you can see the writing on the wall when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to some of these things, you know, there was talk about the transfer portal and that kind of stuff getting really kind of started and going, you know? And so for me, like I said, faith and then family, those are my two priorities always, right? I'm a husband, I'm a father first, who just happens to coach football, who happens to be a strength conditioning coach, right? And so for me, that was, you know, when I was looking at what I was doing and the hours that I was putting in coaching college, I mean, man, shoot, I'm coaching 70, 80 hours a week, and I'm coming home. You know this. You wake up, it's dark. You go to work. I work all day long. I come home, it's dark. When I leave in the morning, the kids and the wife are in bed. When I come home at night, the kids are in bed. Yeah. You know, and so for me, it was like, hold on, time out. You know, like and I loved what I was doing, but truly, what are my priorities, right? Do I want to be? And it was tough when I first saw this position open up, you know, at Urbandale. I was like, all right, so what are I had to sit down. I had to face to face with the guy in the mirror, right? What are my priorities? What do I really want to be doing? And like I said, I loved what I was doing. I loved coaching those young men and watching them, see them grow and develop in over, 4 or 5 years. But do I want to coach other people's kids and then not even know my own in 10, 15, 20 years, right? And so when I saw this position open up, I mean, to me, it was like, wow, like this is a no-brainer. And to touch on, Coach, what you were talking about too with the high school, I mean, find another group of individuals right now, because you said, I don't care if we're talking Power 5, NAIA, Division II, Division III, what FCS, right? I don't care what level in college we're talking about. They're phenomenal strength coaches, right? You find me a bigger group of individuals with more need for proper coaching than at the high school level, right? I mean, what do they talk about as far as the percentage of, 3% or something like that of high school athletes make it to college, right? Become college. It's so like when I look at it now, we have 19 varsity activities, and I'm working with our football players. I'm working with our volleyball, basketball, baseball. I'm also working with our cheer and dance teams. So like if I was at a college position again, like how many times do those athletes don't get the same? I mean, you know it. They don't get the same
Oh, no,
attention,
I've talked about that all the time.
right?
Hey, hold on, coach. Am I coming across distorted to you?
No, you're good.
Okay, because I'm having a little feedback issue on my end. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So for me, that was another big part of it then too, you know. And since I've been here, I've had a couple colleges reach out to me again and want to know if I'd be willing to come. And I'm like, no, right now, I'm absolutely not. You know, I love what I'm doing. I love where I'm at, right? And like I said, being able to work with students and athletes at this level, there's nothing like it.
Well, it's funny you say that because I remember in that early 2000s, kind of like what you were saying when you came in and you were not exposed to a high school strength and conditioning program. There was times, and I know I was not the only one, that in recruiting visits, we would tell parents we'd rather the kid not come from a lifting program because it was so porous, because the high school coach was just opening up the room for the most part. And they're working on game plans and these dudes are doing curls and whatever. And now they're doing, I always say your ultimate goal is to do your athletes a favor so they're ahead of the game if they're fortunate to be in that small percentage that go to the next level. And that's something that, and again, at this level now, at the high school level, and certain states committing more to others, that there's full-time strength and conditioning coaches that, and in some schools, public or private, all they teach is either weight training classes or advanced athletics, and they don't have to coach another sport. They don't have to oversee, in-house suspension room and all that and all the other stuff. So when you're looking at it now from that perspective, and you're now a mentor to young men and women, how much, I've always say you should never fault yourself for being who you are. So how much, without you even having to say it, how much value do you think you get from the parents, the faculty, and obviously the coaches and the athletes when they see your background is, I'm from the state of Iowa. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye. I played Power 5 football. I had a taste of the NFL. I've had a taste of several other professional leagues. I've coached college, and now this coach has taken him and his family and wants to be a part of our community. How much of that, I want to say, like the non-verbal recognition of, man, look who we have that's willing to share what they've experienced with our kids. And because I see that as a value, like if I'm a parent and I have a kid who may be aspiring to go to a level outside of high school, and I know that the coaches that are coaching them, and I'm not saying that makes you better or anything, but knowing that, hey, if my kid plays football, this guy's a Hawkeye, he's played in the Big Ten, we got a little bit extra bonus with a guy like that being around, helping out our kids. Do you hear comments like that thrown at you once in a while? I mean, I know you're not asking for it. I know I can tell by your demeanor, you're definitely not asking for it, but believe me, the parents are talking about it.
Right. Yeah, and it is. I've had parents come up and say something, and usually they're more Hawkeye fans than they are Cyclone fans, right?
That's good, right?
There's got Iowa State here too, but no, I mean we do. Yeah, we've had some parents come up and honestly, it usually happens a lot more to our athletic director, Dr. Watson, because he's a guy. I mean, I got to give him credit too, because he thought outside the box where, my position, like you said, coach, like my position right now is it's the only one like it in the entire state. Where it is, I am full-time strength and conditioning, and that's what I do, right? I'm not I'm not running PE classes. I'm not teaching health class. I'm not doing those things. And so for me to be, brought on to do those things, but yeah, we've had parents say some things, and it's not just, obviously it's been more predominantly, more the football parents and that kind of stuff. But I've had it from volleyball parents. I've had it from softball parents who they've come up and said something like, hey, like we really do appreciate, even though it's a different sport, you understand the process that it took, to get to a higher level and those types of things.
Yeah, you can't change who you are, and the hidden value of the fact that you were fortunate enough to be, have the ability to play at the highest level of major college football. It relates to all athletics, because you understand the commitment, the effort that it takes to play at a high level at the university level. So it doesn't matter whether it's the volleyball coach, the gymnastics coach. And I felt that too when I first started. Like, a lot of the athletes that I worked with were like, well, we know you played D1. Like, right. I don't know how much I know, but yeah, I did play D1. So if you think it matters, I guess it does. So let's talk a little bit. We'll talk some programming in the end, but let's talk a little bit about, so when you got the job, was the facility up or was it a dream?
It was. So when I first interviewed for the position, our athletic director is, like I said, one of the last things he said, he's like, well, hey, we have a thought, we may have something in the works, but we don't. He showed me the old weight room. The old weight room was behind the upper level bleachers in our main gymnasium, right? And so half of the room was stationary, the other half was portable. So because they closed the bleachers, and anytime there was a home basketball game or volleyball game or anything like that, I'd have to move half of the weight room and stack it on the other half so they could back the bleachers up at night before the games. And then I'd have to get there at 4 a.m. the next morning and move it all back so we could, train the athletes and stuff in the morning and all that kind of stuff. So it was to me, it wasn't known yet. And then after I took, they hired me, I took the position. Same, then the very next meeting, the AD brought me in and he unfolded the plans and said, hey, here's the footprint. This is what the plan is. I told you we had a plan in the works. Well, this is what it is. Here's the footprint. This is what the building is going to look like. And then he said, make it your own. Here are the keys. And so from there forward, yeah, it was, I got to go around I went to 39 separate facilities.
Golly.
And looked at, I wanted to make sure, hey, this is a probably once in a lifetime opportunity. I want to make sure I do my due diligence and make sure that we, create a room that we're going to be able to service, right? Like I said, everyone from our senior football players to our freshman female cross-country runners.
Okay, so that kind of transitions into something that kind of was going to bring it up, but now I'm going to go a little bit more into the topic, because everybody's dream is to design a facility from scratch.
Yeah.
I've been able to, but not build the building. So I've been in a structure that was already going to be built on top of the stadium, but I got to outline a room. I got to renovate another room, but here you are building you're the one who's building this thing. You're picking, how tall the windows are, how high the roof is, what type of stereo, what type of this. So now you've gone on 39 fact-finding missions.
Yeah.
And now it's time you've got all the ancillary stuff down, and now it's on now you're on your mission to determine, okay, what's going in this facility. Talk to us a little bit about how you went through that, and then how you wound up, or how the relationship got built. And I know Luke's on the call tonight with Luke and Push Pedal Pull, and how that became what is now the second ranked weight room in high school and the MaxPreps ranking.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I mean, honestly, we're going to be transparent. So when I was in college, Doyle brought in and we had power lift. And so I knew for me, that was the crown jewel. Right. And so then after, I decided, hey, I'm too old to play anymore. Right. And I got full into the coaching. Yeah. Then when I went down to Simpson College, they had power lift there as well. Right. And so for me, like I said, I was like, hey, man, I know that if we're talking top of the line, like this is where it's at.
And they're Iowa based, so that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They're based out of Iowa. And so I was looking at, right, when we started saying, hey, here's our room dimensions. I'm looking at how do I want to have the racks? Do I want to have them on the outside so I can walk in the middle? Do I want to have them in the middle? All that kind of stuff. When I'm going through all that stuff and visualizing it and trying to put things together, I had gone through Luke previously down at Simpson College to renovate some of the cardio stuff in one of the fitness rooms. So that's how I first knew, and we kind of, like, as far as that, that relationship started was through that down there first. So I reached out to some other people, right? I reached out to the reps that I knew at Power Lift and had talked to them first and kind of, hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is, the amount of racks and the equipment, all that kind of stuff. Well, then when they came back with a quote, and like I said, then sit down and talk with our athletic director, he's like, well, hey, listen, we need to have 3, 4, 5. We need to bring a bunch of these to the table, because it had to be all of the equipment, all that kind of stuff had to be voted on and passed by our school board as well.
Because that was going to be one of my questions. How much was it from a school bond? Was it all school bond?
It was
club or
it was one. Yeah, it was 100% through the school bond.
So that's
they had
pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah, and so they had already previously set apart. Hey, here's your budget. This is what you get to use, right? And so now, like I said, for me then too, is like, hey, I need to find, I got to make sure that we are outfitting the room with as much as we possibly can, right? Because it gives us it's not good for us to have this giant room and only a handful of equipment in it and just a bunch of empty space, right? We got to make sure that, the flow, the functionality, the efficiency, all that kind of stuff. So I got to try and get as much stuff as I possibly can and still fit it all within my budget, right? And so then, like I said, then we talked to a couple other reps from different companies and then called up Luke again. I was like, hey, listen, this is what I'm looking at. This is what our budget is. What are some options that you have? And that's when then he presented Dynamic. And then, because I'll be honest, I knew of the hammer strengths, I knew of the power lifts, I knew of Samson, I knew of those other companies. I'd never heard of Dynamic before. So then he presented Dynamic and showed the specs and, hey, this is, you're taking this company A and this is exactly the same. But then what Dynamic then truly did for us then was let us personalize it, right? So when somebody walks into our room, they know that they're walking into Urbandale High School. They're not walking into just any other weight room.
So you lay it out. What was some of the school? Did you visit a combination of high school private and college pro, or did you focus on one predominantly demographic of those when you went on your 39? Was it right? 39,
yeah. Yeah. So for me, I went to predominantly more high school, but within those 39, I was everywhere from, let me see, Minnesota. So I saw facilities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and I think I went to Florida as well. I lose track in there somewhere.
Oh, did they count all that travel as part of your budget for the new weight room, or was that a separate?
No, so that was separate. Yeah, so that was separate as well. But then, like I said, within the major, within the area, Iowa State. I was up in the, some of the other smaller colleges in Iowa and Minnesota, over at Creighton, in Omaha, you know, so I was Drake University here in Des Moines.
Yeah.
So I did go to some other collegiate facilities as well. But like I said, I wanted to find, I'm just going to be honest. It was hard for me to find high schools that was going to give me the same space of room, right? Because our weight room itself is 9,300 square foot. So I had a hard time trying to find high schools that was the same size.
Yeah.
So that led me to some, you know, I had to go see some college rooms to see what they were doing, you know, with the equipment and the spacing, that kind of stuff. But then I also, like I said, I wanted to see high schools because, hey, this is going to be the demographic that I'm going to be working with. You know, I don't need, you know, 1,000-pound leg sled for if it gets used by one kid, right? I got to make sure that I'm using as much as I can to service as many students as possible.
Okay, so that goes to my next question when you're choosing how many racks and some of the ancillary pieces. I know I've heard this several times, and I don't know if you used it in your, how you were going to figure out how many racks per how many kids per class, but I believe, and I don't know if it's written in a text or anywhere, but I think people say they factor in 100 square feet per every athlete that's going to be in the facility at the same time. Was there any real diving into that type of research, or did you factor in, here's what an average class looks like, here's the average time, what do I feel is the most efficient people per station? Like most
right,
of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, and so now a couple areas I pulled from. I mean, I'd heard the same thing, roughly the same 100 square foot. So I kind of had that in the back of my head. But I mean, honestly, for me, I was like, okay, when I was an athlete, right? When I was still playing and that kind of stuff, what made it the most efficient for me, right? When we had 4 guys at a rack, was it feasible? Yeah, we could work out that way. But was it as efficient when we only had 2 or 3? No, right? Like you just couldn't get through that as quickly.
Yeah.
So I designed, we have 26 racks, right? And so I designed it, I truly did. I designed it with the amount of barbells at every rack and how we have the dumb, all that kind of stuff, the weights and the plates. And it is designed to have 4 athletes per rack. And so we have a full power cage. So we have, we'll start with our ground-based power work outside the rack. And so what I talk with our athletes, hey, pair up, right? We'll have 2 of you start your ground-based power, right? And then you transition from outside the rack to inside the rack.
Gotcha.
So now when those 2 are doing, front squats inside the rack, the other 2 now are doing their high pulls or hang clean, whatever we're doing that day, right? And so then we just kind of transition because then we have our track and turf behind the one set of racks. So then our athletes are then able to transition back there and do our split squats and lunges, that type of work. So a lot of it did when going through the planning and equipment selection. The other thing I took into major consideration, right? And I use my own 2 kids as kind of guinea pigs on me. I mean, hey, you guys know that the coaches that are working with athletes and our students today, right? A lot of them, their attention span is like a goldfish. Right. So we got to keep them engaged and right. So how we worked and how I set the room up was like I said, I want to be as efficient as possible. So when the kids come in that room, ideally we should be walking out of that thing in 45 minutes. Right. We start getting much over that 45-minute time with our high school students. And I don't care if it's boys or girls or freshmen or seniors, right? We're starting to lose them after about that 45-minute time window.
So you say, okay, so you're looking at a 45-minute session. Does that relate to, are you guys a traditional 8-period day, or are you on a block schedule or AB, or how does your week work that you factor that as a 45-minute efficient?
So it's our schedules. Now this year it's gotten better. It was absolutely bonkers prior to this year, but so Mondays are our 8-period days. And they're 45 minutes.
I know where you're going with this. I heard about this. This is weird, but go ahead.
And so then our Tuesday through Friday are block period days, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are odd block days, and Wednesdays and Fridays are even block days. So I see everybody on Mondays, right? So I'll see almost 700 kids on Mondays, right? Well, so then how we program it now, once school is in session, is Monday is our speed day, right? And we truly focus on it because by the time we get them in, we do some RPR work, we do some dynamic, we get them firing, right? We do some explosive, speed drills, and then we do the flying test. So we get our speed work done on Mondays, and then we come back and, like I said, depending on what period, whatever they're in, we're getting our lift days then the rest of the week.
Gotcha. So you're in there 5 days a week. Monday is more of your field day.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you talked about your efficiency, this is a big question, I think, and I would have never even fathomed of bringing these into an athletic weight room until I saw Athletes Performance, which is now Exos, have it. When you've got that many racks, and I know a lot of it is philosophical. This is certain things I don't know. When you're making the choice between having traditional dumbbells or you have a budget like you did with power blocks at a station that and again, I would have fathomed the power block in my weight rooms until I actually saw it work with NFL players at API when I was at Arizona State. Because I was, when we did that room, we had 2 sets of, 5 to 150s and 5 to 50s. We're in 2.5s, but we did so much dumbbell work that we didn't have enough dumbbells for 24 platforms. And when I went to the NFL and said, you know what, this power block model might have some merit, and it takes us a little learning for people who are used to traditional dumbbells, but it might have been the best move I ever could have done. So what was your thinking between that? And then the second part is when you're going through a facility that's going to have 700 plus athletes, not only male and female, but 9th to 12th graders, how much what I call the light training bar, people call them female bars, but how many light training bars do you have for your athletes that are on the come up, just starting out in the process?
Absolutely. So for me, that was where one of the old school pieces still got me. So we went with traditional dumbbells, and now what we do is we have the storage space in between the racks. So they're built right in between the racks. And so what we did is, the ends of the room mirror each other. And so we started with, 5-pound dumbbells on one end and 5-pound on the other end, and every 2.5 increment, but the ends of the room mirror each other and it works towards the middle.
Okay.
Right. So then the heavier dumbbells and the heavier stuff is in the middle. And then we do the same thing that we have kettlebells as well. So that was kind of the area where, because I knew, we use kettlebell training and that kind of stuff very frequently, right? We do a lot of goblet work and that kind of stuff. So we did the same thing on the outsides, work to the middle, but then we do, I'll be honest, we do run into times where, hey, coach, all the 15-pound dumbbells are being used. Okay, well, so then what I'll do is I'll look in their workout, I'm like, well, hey, Susie, you've used 15-pound dumbbells for 3 weeks now. Maybe you should try the 17.5s, right? And so we do, there's ways for our athletes to right, figure that kind of stuff out.
Okay, so let me ask you this, dumbbells. So here's another thing that I've been running through my head with those who like the traditional model dumbbells, especially at the high school realm, right? You depending on the high school, depending on the level, maybe you need 105 to 125, maybe you don't.
Right.
And then the question becomes, when you're using a storage system that's available to you, does it make more sense to say, instead of having two full lines from 5 to 100, do you do 4 lines of 5 to 50, 2 lines of 55 to 75, and then 1 line to 80 to 100? Because you probably won't have that many people who need those levels of dumbbells compared to how many will need 5 to 50.
Absolutely. And that's definitely, I mean, honestly, I think that's something, because we went 2 pairs, all, 2.5 increments up to 55s. And then we went 2 pairs from 55s up to 100, right? And then we went up, we have athletes that use them. We went from a 105 up to 150. And we have athletes that now the freshman boys aren't using them, but by the time they get to seniors, we have a handful of kids that are using those dumbbells, right? So like I said, like we don't have the same number of those, but to your point, yeah, like there's definitely more athletes are using, right, those lower weights. At the same time, that's where I'll have, we have our 5-pound plates, we have our 10-pound plates. So if our athlete says, hey coach, there's, I need the 5 pounds for my lateral raises today, there's no more dumbbells. I will grab the 2 plates.
Yeah.
Right. We got plates at every rack. So that's one of the ways, and we have to get a little creative at times with those types of things. But to go with our training bars, right? We have one. So every rack, like I said, we have 26 racks. We have 3 barbells at every rack. So we have an Olympic bar, right? We have our strength bar. We have our 15-pound training bar. And then half of the racks, so we have 13 hex bars as well for the room. So then we also have, on a couple of the walls, we have some bar storage. So if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I believe we have 45 of the training bars, of the 15-pound training bars. So what we do as well, and this is something I started when I first took the position, is, well, hey, I want to, and this is just being a greedy strength coach, right? But I don't want to be the first time getting my hands on and helping mold these athletes. I don't want to be when they first come in as a freshman, right? And I've never seen them before, and you know what I mean? So we do transition classes with our younger groups, our middle school kids. So we do transition classes. And so because of that, right, we have one of the 55-gallon drum, right, garbage cans on wheels. And so we have that thing full of PVC pipe. And so we have that thing full of PVC pipe, and we'll transition from that to then the 15-pound training bars. And so we wanted to make sure that when we had, and I know you've talked about this, Coach, the block zero training, right? We got to make sure that those athletes are moving properly, that the technique and form trumps weight any day, right? And especially when we're talking with these young, very impressionable student athletes, like we got to make sure that we're helping them learn and grow with like you said, rather than just all of a sudden, as a college coach, you got some athletes coming in, you're like, man, I'd rather you've never done anything before, right? So we got to make sure that we have plenty of the lighter stuff for technique work.
I like that term that you use, your transition classes for your middle school. Is your middle school close to the campus, or is that something where the parents got to, or there's a special bus system that brings them to you, or do you go to the middle school for that? Because I always felt like in that setting, when people ask me, like, when do you think and everybody's different, right? People want to train their kids at 3 years old, that's your choice. But overall, I would say, to me, a simple way to set it up is that semester before they're going into their first 9th grade summer. So their last semester of middle school.
Yep.
What are some of your philosophical or systematic traits you're doing for that the transition class?
Yeah. And so the middle school campus is a mile away from a high school campus. And so now, because of the volume of athletes that we train that are high school athletes during the day and in the spring semester, like you talked about, like we just started right now, we had a transition group with our 8th grade softball players. They started today. And So what we do then with them is, because, like I said, because of the volume of high school students we're training every day, it ends up being mom or dad or somebody usually, or possibly a group of them walking over together. But yeah, they end up coming to the high school, and that's where then like I said, we take them through, hey guys, this is how, and day one, and they're all excited about getting in there for the very first time. And I'm like, don't touch anything. You're not touching anything for about a month, right? And so, we're teaching them how to properly breathe. We're teaching them how to do, like I said, some of our warm-up drills. We're teaching them the dynamic. That's what I said. I was like, girls, hey, today, you're going to learn something today. I was like, and guess what? You're going to get bored of it really quick, because this is the same dynamic that you're going to do. Now, we'll have different twists and turns here, but this is the same skeleton that you're going to have for the next 4 years, right? And so what we do is we take them systematically through that transition phase. So, and we've noticed a major difference for the student athletes that have come and done that with us versus the ones that, yeah, like I said, we haven't seen. And then all of a sudden it's the middle of summer, second half of summer is like, oh, hey, coach, I'm going to go out for freshman football this year. I need to get in shape. Yeah, we got 2 weeks, Jimmy. Right. But so when we see those kids who chose not to go through the transition group, there's a major difference within their technique. And that's I need to spend more time trying to help that student catch up as far as proper form and technique compared to the ones who went through our full transition phase.
Okay, so you'll laugh at this. I was just thinking about this when you said it's only a mile away. I said, yeah, back when I started, we'd have those kids with a 10-pound plate over their head and make them run over 1 mile. You got 10 minutes to get here with the plate over your head. And then nowadays you do that. When they all got here, the AD'd be saying, hey, turn your keys in.
That's right.
Got to go find a job. I know that's been, I think, like you said, same thing on like the college level. If you're willing to invest in the kid, because I always say this too, regardless of how I train them, your football coaches, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, they already know what middle school kids have. Man, that kid's playing varsity.
Right.
It don't matter if Coach Traynor's doing push-ups, sit-ups, back squats, or full squats. That kid's playing varsity no matter what. So
exactly.
What does it matter what you're doing with them from the general? And that's where like society in United States, we've got to really understand there's a big difference between general and specific preparation. And what's going on with that is we can't say because this kid as a freshman, whether it be high school or college, is skill-wise prepared to play at this level because of all the position-specific and sport-specific training he's gone through. That doesn't mean from a general prep and from injury protection or however you want to deem the injury part of it.
Right.
You can see that they're not skilled there. Like, yeah, they can run 100 meters in 11 seconds as a freshman, but kid can't skip.
That's right. Absolutely.
Run. So there's a big difference with how that looks. And that's where it's hard to especially with the football coach. What do you mean you're not going to lift him? We need him. Said you're playing him anyway, coach.
Right.
You're playing him anyway. I've seen your depth chart. You've already got this guy as a 3 deep rotation in your corners, and he's going to start at nickel. So if I do no bench pressing and no squats, are you still playing him? Well, yeah, he's better than what we got. Then let's slow it down.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you nailed it right on the head. And that's where, to tie it into, buzzwords come and go, and what's the hot topic and that kind of stuff. But, the whole, and this is what I talk to our athletes about all the time. Like, guys, hey, listen, like, as far as the strength and conditioning piece of this, right? Like my job, believe it or not, because, like there's days where when I walk into, the room and we got 100 athletes in there and I'm the dumbest one in there, right? Between Instagram and with and all that kind of, you know what I mean?
Coach Traynor don't know nothing.
That's right. Hey, this guy I'm following on Instagram says we should be doing this. Great. Well, that guy's not tackling anybody. He's not changing direction. He's not, So the whole, the injury prevention piece of it, right? Like, well, guys, hey, that's, like I said, whether or not you believe it, my entire job is to help you get better at X, Y, or Z sport.
Yeah.
Right. And so an athlete's greatest ability is their availability. Right. We have some high level athletes, but I'm like, guys, hey, we had a kid a couple of years ago that right as COVID first hit, right? And our track season and everything got canceled. I'm like, guys, but hey, listen, Harrison is the fastest kid in the state. Hands down, the kid can move. He's a burner. Fastest kid in the state. But if he pulls a hamstring because he's not properly trained, right? And now he can't go out there and run that 100 for the state track meet, no one cares. Guess what? He's not the fastest kid in the state anymore, right? And so being able to have and this is where I truly believe that the high school level, and I to go back a ways, right? This is where I truly believe there's a lot of very high quality former professional, former collegiate strength coaches that are going into the high school realm because they see this opportunity where, hey, how am I going to help this kid excel in X, Y, or Z sport? What am I going to look at, the sport specific demands? So how are we going to train them with that? But then how are we going to help these kids from hurting themselves?
Yeah.
I got baseball players that want to go to, the big gym nearby and do bench press 5 days a week because they see this other guy on Instagram. Like, guys, how's our throwing motion, right? How are we not going to tear a rotator before the season's then? You can't even get on the mound anymore, right? So being able to help the kids truly understand, like I said, this is our job. This is what we're here for. How are we molding those two together so they're as successful as they can possibly be in whatever sport they're participating in?
Yeah, I think that's good. That's and I think somebody actually brought up something about social media when we get to these questions, but that's the tough part because for every person on social media that I'm like, wow, man, that's somebody you got to follow. There's I think 10. So it's a 1 to 10 ratio of.
I think you're being generous.
Yeah, I hope somebody's not watching that, or the ones that give you advice, right? Hey, if I was coaching, well, have you coached? No, or I coach in the private sector. I coach, one guy at a time. Well, I coach 100 guys at a time. If I could coach, believe me, I'm coaching one guy right now, and the amount of time I can invest in one person is a lot different when I've got 100.
That's right.
In a team setting with rules. I have no rules. I have no time restraints. I'm training one person to do one thing.
Yeah.
So let's wrap the facility part up with this question. I think it's a good way to wrap it up. And then we'll go to the questions from some of our registered clinicians. I always look at certain things from a community standpoint of a sense of pride, right? Generally college athletics in some towns, but high school athletics, right? The Friday Night Light syndrome. And that occurs even in other, depending on what's the dominant sports at your high school, it could be Wednesday night volleyball. It could be Saturday night wrestling match, especially in Iowa, right? Wrestling.
Right.
Some places that supersede football. And so when this facility gets built, right, I would have to think the community, the parents, the kids, even the staff, the general staff, obviously the coaches, and then someone like yourself. What does the morale look like? Because I would venture to think with a facility like that, the success rate of the teams goes up, which brings morale to majority of the students are doing some type of sporting event. Even like you said, you're training cheer and dance. Well, guess what? They compete. If they win, they're happy. How have you seen the overall, which now brings up positive mental health and wellness, right?
Absolutely.
How has that changed from the time you guys cut the ribbon on this facility to the time you were there training and moving stuff out of the bleachers?
Yeah. I mean, to go back to that part, right? Where we legitimately, I mean, I told our student athletes before, I'm like, hey guys, like I would see, maybe somebody who hadn't been in for a while or a new student come in and they'd be wearing like, hey, do you like that t-shirt? And like, well, yeah. I'm like, then you need to go find a different, because you're going to work out in here and you're going to get full of rust and dirt, right? And so like, when kids walked into the old space, right? I mean, you could sense it. Like, you had your kids who truly understood the reason why we're there, right? Okay, I need to come in and get this. They could see the vision down the road. If I want to get there, I need to be doing this along the way, right? Where now, like you said, I mean, you should see, like I said, the transition softball group tonight was the first time that they had walked into our room. And they walked in, and for the 45-minute training session, they couldn't stop smiling. Well, I mean, if you look forward to, right, you want to go somewhere, hey, if I'm looking forward to going to a workout, right? Exactly. What's my positive outlook going to be? What's my mentality, my emotionally, mentally? How is that going to differ compared to, oh, this is just something I got to go do, right? It's completely different. So much of it is how we think and that type of stuff, and what's our attitude towards those things, right? We're going to excel at something if we're looking forward to it, if we have pride in it, right? And that was part of the reason too, when designing the room, hey, we wanted to make sure that when our students, when our parents, when our athletes, when our alumni, we had over Christmas break, we averaged 17 alumni who wanted to, they came back, they trained at our facility for their Christmas break, rather than either staying at their college or going to one of the other local gyms. Right. Because they were like, man, this is, I want to be here right now. And so it is, as far as a community of the parents, you're doing something right when the opposing players and when the opposing parents and coaches stop to gawk at your room when they first arrive on campus.
Well, and I also think that, as you know, when more and more of your alumni that especially play at the next level come back, and then they start talking about their experiences, that's going to motivate somebody who may not even, like, I remember I coached at a prep school that was highly academic. And when I started talking to these guys about, and I coach football and wrestling, but when I talked to these guys about playing college football, it didn't even fathom to them. And I'm like, well, what schools are you looking at? And they're telling me like Princeton or, Berry College. I said, well, they got football. Well, they do? Like, right. What do you mean they do? Like, hey man, you're good enough to play there. You should play. And I think that's what it could. And again, a motivating factor when those kids come in Christmas break, and like you said, they chose to come there and not the public gyms. It means something, and do you hope that the younger generation sees the pride they take in the fact that Urbandale as a district and as a, again, that's public money. That wasn't a couple of boosters. I mean, that was a school board saying this is important enough that this is a big number that we're going to invest.
Absolutely.
And again, we've all seen the data. I'm not going to get into the research about, those who exercise do better, especially if they do it right. If you wake up early, you have a good breakfast, you take a shower and you brush your teeth right, you're going to have a better day. Exercise counts. So yeah, I think that's very cool. And again, it's amazing to see what some of the high school facilities are turning into in this day and age. And it's obviously, depending on how it becomes to fruition, you can commend school board, you can commend booster clubs, you can commend, a combination of the both. And
absolutely.
There's a lot of people who are willing to see success in athletics, because athletics brings so much more to the entire community. You win Friday night lights for the small, locally owned shops, or it's better for them when they open on Saturdays.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's very, very cool. All right, Coach, we're going to go hit these questions and then we're going to wrap it up because we're already at an hour and we're right on time for what James and I told you we
All
usually
right.
have to wrap it up. So these questions generally, James does a really good job of when we register our clinicians that they can ask questions to submit. And we've actually we've answered every single question that we've ever had on. So we feel like that's part of our role is if someone's willing to ask a question, then we should take the time to answer it. And I think we're 100%. James probably could, hopefully he can sign off on that. Yeah, yes, we are. Thanks, James.
That's awesome.
So this first question is, I'm going to start with, it's two questions from the same person, but I want to start with this one first. What questions do you reflect on when you come into a new school or program?
Okay. Well, so for me, it was, what is their commitment? If I'm looking at, taking this position, the position itself was alluring, right? But like, what's their commitment? What's the support like? If I come here and there's no support, right? And from the top down, it's like, well, yeah, like we created this position because there was, parents want whatever, but there's no support. Like it's going to be a failing position, right? So for me, like that was a big, like, hey, what's the commitment like? What's the school or the university or whatever, whoever, right? What are they truly committed in this position or whatever it is that you're looking, going forward? What's the support like, right? And then what is the tradition? Do they have a winning tradition? Is it something that's important to the students, the people that I'm going to be working with, right? So for me, those were a lot of the background type stuff that when I was like, okay, well, hey, like, I'm not just going to jump in here blindly, right? I want to understand what truly are they really saying this, right? Do they mean it? Do they truly mean it in the depth of their soul? Or is it something that they're just kind of putting that out there?
Gotcha. And then same type of reflection question. What questions do you reflect on as you prepare for your off-season work?
So for me, then with that's when I break it, because like I said, I work with all 19 of our activities. So then I sit down and as the season's going along, I'm making notes as far, like I said, whether it's our dance team, whether it's the football team in the fall, whether it's, baseball in the summer, I'm making notes like, hey, how's it? And then I'll talk and communicate daily with the students and the athletes themselves. Like, hey, Jimmy, how you feeling today? How's things going? Because I want to make sure that I have the best data is just going to be talking with the athletes themselves, right? And so I'll make notes along the season. And then when the season is over, right, whether we finish on top or didn't have the season that we wanted, I'll go back then through because then I'll make notes about that. Like, well, our softball team didn't finish as high as we were hoping. And this is what got them at the end of the year. We had, too many injured, whatever. And so then I'll look at all that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
Because for me, that's going to fuel what are our priorities going to be in the off season, right? Do we need a little more GPP work? Do we need, right? Did we end the year healthy, but we just got outplayed? We just weren't fast enough, right? Okay, so then, right, this stuff here is going to stay the same, but we need to add X, Y, or Z over here to try to take that next step.
All right, here we go. As a young strength coach, what are some good, reliable resources? Twitter page to follow, books to get, YouTube channels, people to connect, etc. I want to hear that one.
Okay. So this is where, for me, right, I try to learn and try to get as much as I can from all types of sources, right? Honestly, I'm not a big YouTube guy, just simply because of the amount of time. I do a ton of reading, right? And now I'm gonna plug one here, right? But Coach Kenn's Coach's Strength Training Playbook, right? If you're a young strength coach, that's a phenomenal one. I love Mike Boyle's stuff, right? Functional training for
I know
sports.
why you like Boyle stuff. You come from a Boyle disciple.
So there's a right there's some of those books right there. But for me, there's a lot of I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
Yeah.
Right? I really do. But like you said, there are some, Dr. Brian Mann, right? Mike Boyle, Pat Basil, Cody Hughes, right, is a really good strength coach. And he puts a ton of information out there. And he'll even have templates and that kind of stuff. Brendan Thompson, he's a former Hawkeye as well, right? Puts a lot of really good speed stuff out there. Tony Holler out of the state of Illinois, right? The whole Feed the Cats system. So for me, there's a lot of those types of things. And then when it comes to books, and then I have to say, in the high school world as well, I feel like we have to do a lot more than just, right, the push-ups and that type of stuff. So like I refer, when I get a ton of, every day I have somebody ask me about nutrition work.
Yeah.
Right. So Wendy Earlbrick, she's a registered dietitian on Twitter. She puts a ton of amazing information out there. So I'll send her link and that kind of stuff to the kids so they can find that kind of stuff. But then I think when it comes as far as young coaches, to me as well, like there's tons of great, the X's and O's of strength and conditioning, right? And a lot of it's going to go back to your philosophies and, West Side stuff, right? Jim Wendler, like you can find tons of really good S&C stuff. But for me, I think, especially at the high school level, you're gonna become a better coach if you do more of the personal development type stuff as well, right? So just different books that you can read then that's going to help you become the better version of you, right? Is going to help you become a better coach to then serve those athletes.
Yeah, I think at a certain point in time, there's like, even for someone in my level, like I'm actually studying for the NSCA sports science certification, because I think there's value in that, even for me in the role I serve today, to more so just to realize that it's not going away, and
right.
my era is behind. So, and I'm a believer in certification. I believe in minimal qualifications, and you proved you were willing to
100%.
take time and effort to do that. I also think, though, there's a certain point where you got to stop worrying about the X's and O's, because in the end, it's just it is as simple sometimes as just lifting weights.
Absolutely.
And leadership types of books, learning how to be a mentor, learning what leadership means, because a lot of us, and probably and even yourself, Coach, you're still probably in that era where free play in the playground was still a majority of how people learn things. And in this coach-fed versus peer-led world we live in at the youth and the adolescent ages, where there is no time for the kid to figure out, well, what's the rules? Let's make some rules up. Who's
right.
going to be the cat? Who's picking the teams? You don't see that anymore. Who's the quarterback? Then there's fist fights over who's the quarterback. Now it's
right.
Well, the dad who coaches the team's son is the automatic quarterback, whether he should be or not.
Right.
He's the quarterback. Who's the captains? What's going on? And so it's very much changed, and to me it kind of gets laughable how much, and I'm sure you've been there in the university setting, how much money's invested in bringing in leadership coaches to teach somebody how to lead. I'm like, I know how to teach how somebody to lead. Send 100 kids out there, tell them this is what they're doing, let them figure it out.
Absolutely.
And you'll find out who doesn't want a part of it, who's going to fight to be the dude in charge, and how you get your leadership, your guys who are workers, right? Like I've learned over time that there's this false definition of leader by example, right? You always hear it, right? You talk about a guy, quiet kid, does everything right, works hard, right? And then the coach gets, oh, he's a leader by example. And you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then I finally came to an epiphany, like, ho, ho, ho. Nobody follows him. He's just a hardworking guy, and we need a lot of those guys too. So
that's right.
That's who he is, and that's okay, because everybody has a value and everybody has a role. But if we don't allow that to organically come up, we've given too many people voices. And now everybody in our society, everybody feels like it's their right to say something. And a lot of times, a lot of people haven't earned it. And I think that's some of the things that you can reflect on as outside the X's and O's, and how we can help bring that to fruition. Like I love the guys who really want to know what's going on, because they'll relay it to some of the kids, especially some of the guys who have a hard time listening to coaches. They'll listen to their buddies.
Absolutely.
So you got to find those guys, and you want to make it an organic thing, because some guys you think want to do it, they really don't. And now you're putting pressure on them, and now it affects their play or her play, because you made them something that's not really in their personality. So that's the type of stuff I like. That, the sports psych stuff and things like that are things I think coaches can get a more value than, hey man, you're going to do a squat. It's like the old Dan John, right? You're going to do a version of a squat. You're going to do a version of a pull. You're going to press and pull, and you're going to do it now and everything. You're going to do a carry and a jump and a sprint. If you can do all that, it doesn't really matter what you choose. Do it hard. Give them, understand recovery, eat them, teach them how to eat, and then figure out all the cool stuff about being a team.
Right.
So that'll go to, what are good ways to persuade, promote, motivate students, athletes, and coaches to go into the weight room? I would say with your weight room, that's a lot easier.
Yeah. But, and this is where there's so much of this, and I used to preach to our college athletes about this, about how everything has changed because of the cell phone, right? And where our generations now are growing up where they want instant gratification from something that, right? And it's because of the cell phone, where if they want to know something, right? What tell somebody to do it, right? Hey, just Google it, right? So so because of that, we have to be able to help. And it is what it is, man. This is the way things are going. But how are we going to motivate those individuals? Well, we have to understand that whether they're not, whether it's not a negative thing, but you have to help them understand, relate it to how it's personal to them, right? How is this going to personally help that individual out, right? Whether it's a student, whether it's the other coaches, whether, whoever it is. Well, hey, if we're trying to get little Jimmy, the running back on the football team doesn't want to show his face in the summer, well, explain to him, hey, if you come in here and we do this, this, and this, it's going to help you become better at whatever it is that your goals are, right? So I think for me personally, that's one of the areas where I try to excel in, as far as how can I personally relate it to our students, our athletes, our coaches, whoever it may be, that coming in here is going to help personally you benefit, right? Where, like I said, whatever their goals are, it's going to help them get there either faster or just more efficiently.
Got it. Okay. Ideas and ways to fundraise, persuade the administration to help with upgrading the weight room.
So, fortunately for me here, right, the original everything, like I said, was in a bond. So we didn't have to do that originally. Now we are looking at, getting some other technology and that type of stuff in in the room as well to, to help track VBT and that kind of thing. So for me, what I've done in the past, right? When I was at the small, hey, we had, you would not believe the budget that we had at the D3 school I was coaching at previously, right? So I had to do a lot of fundraising just to be able to buy some new barbells and do that kind of stuff. So for me, we were doing everything under the sun that I could think of as far as, we did, I know at the school now, every sport has their athletic apparel site and that type of stuff, right? We used to do one through the weight room previously. We used to do different events where we had other local athletic events that needed help, setting up and breaking down for. We had in Des Moines, we have a major youth volleyball tournament, right? And so we volunteered because we knew we were going to get paid for doing it. But doing those different types of things, we reached out to other organizations who we knew, hey, you have this major event coming up. Right? We know that you're going to need help setting up and tearing down. Yeah. What can we get back for that? So those types of things we did. And then the same thing, I just personally, and this is where I think it goes back to, it can't be, if you truly want results, it can't be, you can do however you want. But personally, I believe it can't be an email. It can't be a text message. I picked up the phone and I made phone calls to boosters previously, right? And alumni who I knew, hey, if I call so-and-so, I would talk to other coaches. Hey, did this guy who's doing really well right now with his own business, did he have a positive experience here? Yeah, he loved it. Awesome. I'm going to give that guy a call and let him know, hey, whatever you could help with, but we need help X, Y, and Z, because but then have that plan too. If you just say, hey, we're just trying to raise money, people are much less likely to help you fundraise unless they know exactly what it is that you're going for, right? If you make that list and you explain, hey, we're trying to get 5 new trap bars and we're trying to get a timing system and here's the amount of money we need for it, they're more likely to help you with that, get to that financial goal. And then when you do, you got to make sure, hey, you purchase that. And this is what I did. I would purchase whatever it is that I had on that list. And I said, this is what we're going for. And I sent a picture to them and thanked them again, yeah. Right? Because I want to make sure that they knew, hey, the $500 I donated, yep, he did what he said he was going to do with it. He didn't just go on the athletic fund, right? No, he said he was going to buy barbells and this and this. Well, he took a picture of it when all came in. I took pictures of it and I sent it to him with a thank you saying, hey, we appreciate it so much for your financial support. And this is exactly what we were able to get with it.
Gotcha. Okay, last one, Coach. What do you find to be the single most important lift and piece of equipment to succeed in football?
Oh boy. I mean, if I had to pick one, and like I said, obviously this is just my own philosophy, my own personal, right? But just using my own background and that type of stuff, right? I had seen plenty of guys who were, just amazing football players. And I don't care what position we're talking. I legitimately don't care. I don't care if we're talking, offensive guard, we're playing D tackle, wide receiver, whoever, kicker. The most powerful guys were the best players, right? Not always the strongest. Not always the strong, because I played with guys too that looked like Tarzan and played like Jane just because they couldn't move their own body, right? So for me, if I had to pick one, I would probably go with the hang clean, strictly to work on that power, right? That hip extension. And if I had to pick one, that's what I would go with.
Okay. Then what about a machine?
Machine. Now, oh boy, same thing. If we're going to go, wow. I'm just going to use one that we got here at our own, right? And oh man, you're going to make me pick one, huh?
Well, I'd be in the same boat, but I do have one preference now because it's one of my bigger relative strength movements anyway. And now there's a machine that can help, but I'll let you go.
So it would be one of, I would have to narrow it. I know two instantly, but it would have to be one of the two.
Give us two.
Well, so for me, it would
My show. It's my show. Give us two.
Right. It would be our inverse curl.
Yeah, that's number one.
So for me, it would be the inverse curl, or the reverse hyper.
Gotcha. Oh, reverse. Interesting you say that.
You know what I mean?
I've found that the reverse hyper has become, I don't want to say overrated, but its value has changed because I promoted it as a medical piece now. 20 years ago, when everybody was hot and heavy on, oh, here comes the West Side model into college football and how you're going to use it. But I think what we lost factor is, one, it was built as a rehabilitation model. And I think there's value of having it in the weight room because I had them. But over time, I saw a lot of people, and I still to this day, who have reverse hypers that don't program it. So it sits there, and now it's become a joke. I even saw a joke on social media where, a reverse hyper is really your tabletop to take attendance and store stuff. I believe that it's a necessity in a weight room that squats, bench, and deads, because regardless of what level, the higher strength levels of kids and compression of the spine, if you've got high school kids who can squat 500, deadlift 500 plus, there's some merit in programming in for those kids for the traction and the decompression of the spine. But if I also go back to, if we're training right, and we're doing our our 45-degree back extension, we're doing planks, you're doing RDLs, a lot of that stuff should give you, at the age brackets we're coaching with non-injuries, I think there's it depends. There's a lot of things I go back, but I think that's kind of fallen down my list. And obviously the inverse leg curl, because to me, the Nordic curl,
yes,
is one of the most, it proves its value.
Yes, absolutely.
And it proves its toughness by how many people, regardless of level, can't do any.
Absolutely.
And that was always my block zero kids when I was in the private sector. Every one of them could do at least one. And then my son, my oldest son, who was a kind of a pretty good freaky body weight relative guy, he did 50 at the end of a workout nonstop, but he did 7 out of the 9th grade. So it was all, and I believe those are use it or lose it exercises like pull-ups. Once a kid can do a pull-up, he should do pull-ups every day. I don't care if it's one set of one. Do pull-ups every day, because if you stop doing pull-ups, you will lose that capability.
Without question.
The inverse curl to me, and here's what I say, and one of our sales reps, Coach Labuda, who's a legend in that area, he loves the inverse leg curl. He'll push that leg curl on everybody he can get his hands on. But why is there value in that to me over a glute ham raise and some of these other pieces of posterior chain specific when it comes to any level, but in particular high school? Because anyone who walks into any one of those 700 kids you have can do a proper rep.
That's right.
You can fix the load and they can do the proper rep. And there's value in that. And there's also value in, like, a lot of people do the eccentric, but it's hard to judge improvement, right? Oh, did he get another 2-inch lean or did he not from last week?
Right. Yeah.
I know, like for me, in my personal experience with it, I think the very first time I got on it, I weighed about 285 and I had like 240 pounds on it. And now, up until I had a hernia surgery, I'd gotten down to being able to do sets of 3 with 176.
Yeah.
But then I had hernia surgery and it was prolonged. So when I went back to start up, I'm minus 44 off my best. I had to add another 20 kilograms to start, and that's chipping away. I'm coming back fast, but I have numbers that can tell me where I'm at. It's not, oh man, did I go down 3 inches before I fell on my stomach, or did I go down 2? So I think that's been a, you know, and it's funny how like you don't hear Louis talking about glute hams anymore.
Right.
I mean, we still do them, and I still think they got a lot of merit because there's still another hard relative strength exercise. But if you can get that inverse working for you and getting stronger, the glute hams will go up. And there's a lot of research now with the Nordboard and Ball Performance with that eccentric patterning in recovery from hamstring health.
Absolutely.
And that's the cell, right? That's the medical cell. There's a protection element that's being shown based off of researches on eccentric loading of the hamstrings in a Nordic curl and from an isometric hold. So yeah, I was interested to see what you brought up. I like that fact that you threw out the reverse hyper. That makes me think again. Cool. Okay, Coach, we went over, but that's all right. I usually go over, so that's all right. We really appreciate your time. I know you said, you got family time and it's a Wednesday night, and for everybody who came on, thank you. Kurt and Tammy, we appreciate you allowing us to do this, and James, who stays on, and then tomorrow he'll cut it all up and get it out on YouTube for everyone else. Again, we appreciate you, and we appreciate Luke from Push Pedal Pull and getting dynamic into your facility and the second-ranked MaxPrep high school room in the country. We can take pride in that. And if there's anything else we can ever do for you guys, just please let us know. And thanks again, Coach, and keep doing a great job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you guys all next month. Me and James will figure out what we're going to do, and guys will let you know when we know. But for Dynamic Fitness and Strength, Kurt and Tammy, as well as James, we'll see you all next week. And again, for Coach Pete Traynor at Urbandale High School, thank you guys very much for attending and listening. We'll see you all next month. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys. Bye.